This is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I'm the fellow who has a hyphen in my name. The hyphen is silent, but I am anything but that. Sarah, this morning, we always get into this jam because somebody's going to be listening in the evening and saying it's not the morning. Well, it's morning for us. And what we have is Sarah Benton, my co-host, and Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley, that is I, and I am the Voice of Respectonomics. Our subject this morning, Sarah, is going to be responsibility and accountability. But before we get into it,
Good morning.
I was going to say, may I bid you a fair good morning? Are you receiving a fair good morning?
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, I am.
Okay. And what we're going to be talking about is responsibility and accountability. And I found as we got into the subject, I found there was a lot of what I call word salad going on, where you can get these words running around and you start chasing each other down and so on. And it gets us into a bit of a mess. Respectonomics is clear on 2 points. The first one is that we are in the business of restoring the dignity of the human being. And
Yes.
secondly, I believe we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to recognize what is going on in the business/political/social world and how people's lives are evolving and so on, with the balance, if you will, of the information that you and I have through the Dignity Trust. And it is well for people to hear that the Dignity Trust is an assembly of people, very different backgrounds demographically and experientially. And it is on those resources that we draw. So this is not a Sarah/Jeremy show. We are presenting the information that's been made available to us. And that's our responsibility. Our accountability, I believe, and I'd like you to comment on this, our accountability is that the people hearing the message and hearing this information find it useful and helpful. That's our responsibility. Our accountability is that the message is being heard correctly and clearly.
Yes, most definitely.
You're on. Okay, so we're on side. The first thing I want to talk about responsibility is we were all taught to be responsible. You remember parents and whoever's caregivers, takers, yelling at us, act responsibly. I had that all my childhood. I'm not sure what's happened, but anyway, we were told to act responsibly. All right, okay, here we are. But the thing about responsibility is this. If we have responsibility, it's a parallel construction. With responsibility comes accountability. If you have, and here's a big risk in the world today, if you have responsibility without accountability, you have the mechanism of power, you have the mechanism of control, and you have the mechanism of coercive leadership. It's actually parasitical because basically it works on the premises of I'll suck out wherever I can, and when the host dies, I will have already left. It's a very ugly proposition. So if we're going to explain and discuss responsibility, let us all agree that it comes with accountability. That's the first point of reference.
Okay.
The second part is this. I am aware of people in the business world particularly, where they are given all of these requirements of how to do things, whether it's entering on a computer, whether it's the questions they ask of their customers, whether it's their regulatory compliance, whatever it might be. And there's a tremendous emphasis in those cases on accountability. You are accountable for this, 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 and this. And that's fine. Except that with that accountability becomes a requirement that that individual or individuals are also able to be responsible. And to be responsible means being asked and being included in the original decisions. How many times do we see, politically or corporately, how many times do we see decisions being made that we had no part in? We were never asked. We were never consulted. We were never sort of even, I think you in your business life have seen surveys, and I think you found that they were just a bureaucratic nightmare that ended up in the garbage pail.
Yes, unfortunately, a lot of those are still a mandate, if you will, in terms of to be able to say we did it. It's then all seems to get dropped in terms of those results and what then gets imparted to address
I
the
think
survey.
I think if we're going to be accountable, the responsibility side to the equation requires us to be able to share in the decision-making process. To be sharing in the decision-making process is not one of these tick the boxes and we'll get back to you in 3 months' time. We're missing out on something here that's critically important in this whole arrangement. We talk about the dignity of the human being. You and I have a dignity that is expressed in our responsibility to bring respectonomics to people and so on. We've talked about that. But there's one other aspect to this. We talk, we communicate, we share ideas. We have telephone conversations. We have in-person conversations. We share our ideas with other people. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because I have become very aware of how much information is being transmitted from the top to the bottom, all in the form of digital communication. It's all being done with little boxes and little sign pads and screens and did you check your boxes this morning? This kind of approach. And the trouble is, anthropologically, look at the human being for one moment. This I can prove. 90% of our communication has always been, and presumably always will be, neural. We pick up on messages from each other, the way we move our hands, the way we move our faces,
Body language, gestures.
Body language generally. It's a huge transmitter of information. And we're taking all of that out as long as we emphasize the digital artificial intelligence approach. And the reason I'm bringing this to the table is that the level of communication is essential on a person-to-person basis. I said I could prove it. You go to a party and you have a really good time, just like I did yesterday at this picnic. Great time.
Right.
But the thing is, if you said to me afterwards, what did you talk about? I think I pretty much blank out. I do know 2 things we talked about, but generally speaking, I blank out. I don't know what we were talking about, but I had a good time. And that is because neurally, the conversation was reinforcing, it was encouraging, it was laughable. Lots of nice things happened. So all I'm pointing to you is that it's probably a home truth. If you're going to impart responsibility and accountability, it needs to be done in person. Now, you can't do it in person all the time. I realize that.
Yeah, I was going to say, just depending on the size of the organization, we certainly recognize that digital communication is important because then it also everybody's receiving the same message, or let me rephrase that. You're delivering the same message or the same content. But absolutely, it's that people connection or that managerial connection where you're either, reinforcing or having dialogue around that.
Yeah. Well, can I put a plea on the table to our listeners? And that is that the best communication is always and always has been, always will be person to person, real world. We need the framework, as you've described, of the digital connection. That is absolutely true. It's a brilliant tool, but it is not an end in itself. It is
it's a tool. You identified that. It's a tool.
To get us to the end that we want to get to. But you need to have the neural personal communication in between. And if you're going to bring down decisions that you are expecting people to be responsible for, you need to bring them into the actual decision-making process. How many times, I'm sure you knew this one, I can attest to this authentically, the number of times a document was produced that we were never consulted on. And then you found out a week later it didn't work. And then you went back to the people and said, it is not working. And you get this brilliant answer, oh, but we tested it. Well, they didn't. I mean, that's, in a court of law, no, you didn't. Because a proper test would have involved asking people how they felt about it, what they saw valuable in it or not valuable in it, and so on. So this communication business, and that is when we talk about the dignity of the human being, we are talking about how one human being corresponds and engages with another. And it doesn't just happen in a physical bodily sense. That's what emails are all very bodily. But if you want to engage the mind, you need to be able to approach the other individual with your mind and let the other person respond to you with their mind. And when you really get down to it, when you allow that inner part of one's being, the spirit, the soul, the core of oneself, your identity, when you allow that identity to meld with the identity of the other, then you're cooking with gas. Then you've got real prospects of getting great information and great ideas to flow through. Now, I've got another comment, and that is, if in fact employees are being shaped according to this, what would you call it, this world of digital communication and you don't really need to know comment, just do as you're told.
Right.
I have a theory about that one. I'm not calling it a theory. I think it's very practical. If you're treating me as an employee like that, what level of assurance do I have that you're not treating the customer like that?
Right.
And I think
that's funny you say that. So an example that I can think of that comes to me like instantaneously is when you go to call, for example, and you're on a call center and you have a question, you can hear when they're following the manual. And I understand that there are procedures in place to help provide guidance, but it's almost like they're on autopilot. So they're not listening, or they don't have the ability or the capability to come off of script. And they just keep repeating and repeating, even though it's not hitting what it is that you're speaking of.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember once having a phone conversation with Bell Canada, I think it was them called. It might have been BC. I don't know what they called it. But it was one of those ridiculous things when I said, we don't have a dial tone. And he said, what do you hear? Well, no dial tone. I mean, how many times do you have to repeat that? But seriously, and then what's fascinating is I'm honing on Bell for two reasons. Number one, their business is communications.
Correct.
And yet their very practice is the opposite. I mean, that's diametrically obvious. And the other thing is that I think Bell is a very good example of when you let down one side of your triangle being your customer, your shareholder, and your employees. When you let down one side of the triangle, it affects the other two. And I think it's very interesting to look at Bell's performance today of cutting its dividend, its stock price doing appallingly, that I think we can trace back to the time when they were treating customers like riffraff. We didn't count. And I think you said to me, I think it was you that said to me, the experience, and it came from the Dignity Trust anyway, the experience where you walk into a business or in a business and it's almost you're made to feel like it's a privilege to be talking to them.
And,
that doesn't work. The customer needs to be served. You're in the service business. That's, respectonomics is designed to serve. That's all. It doesn't pontificate. It doesn't make rules. It's organic and it gives people the chance to think about a few things. Right. And we should be doing that. The employee, the customer, all should be doing that. It's an organic relationship. Now, one of the things we need to move from responsibility to accountability. But I want to say one thing lastly about responsibility, and that is most of us get into awful messes with our heads on our responsibilities and trying to get them done and so on. And I know you and I have talked about this before, but getting that journal written is one of the best techniques to bring all one's thoughts to the table. And the reason I say that is because if you think of one's own responsibilities, it's really a hybrid or an expression of your gifts and your talents. I mean, ultimately, you're good at something and you express that responsibility accordingly. No responsibility is greater than the one that you express to yourself about yourself. Those are the ones that really, really matter. Corporations, politicians may tell you to do something. It's your own inner responsibility that will always give you the greatest satisfaction when it's put in place and activated.
Also that act of writing things down. I know you're big on journaling, putting it down. It also gives you the opportunity as you transition, as you talked about, into the accountability. It gives you an opportunity to go back and create a plan to hold yourself accountable.
Exactly. Journal, and the last thing I'll say about this journaling, although I think we'll probably repeat it many a time, it has been said, when you write a journal, you reveal things to your soul that your mind cannot tell it. It's absolutely incredible that if you start writing, how many times do you find, wow, where did that come from? Well, it's within yourself, but your writing is the vehicle that brings it to the table.
Well, I know you often talk about your inner calling.
Yeah, that's just where you find it. But just start writing. That's all you got to do. It's not complicated. Just write down, what did I do today? What did I feel about what I did today? That's all. Now, the area of accountability. I think the first thing we've already touched on, actually, the accountability starts with me. When I am accountable to me, that is one of the finest callings I can have. It's not accountable to you, not accountable to whomever, but when I'm accountable to myself, that is when I can really start grasping at what I'm good at and what I should be doing. One of the problems we end up with, as everybody knows nowadays, we're all trying to do 28 things in 27 minutes. Can't be done.
Right.
So having an accountability to oneself is just a very, very good starting gate. That's all. The next thing I think we should do is understand that that accountability with yourself is in fact authentic. It's one of the most, I mean, it sounds incredibly obvious, doesn't it? To say that, my accountability starts with me, therefore it's authentic. Well, yes, it is. But do you know what? Authentic people are very attractive. You're drawn to them. You love them. So being authentic is great. And if you're authentic to yourself, I mean, the Greeks used, you haven't had your Greek expression today, have you? Are you ready for one?
We have not had Greek expression today.
Okay, here we go.
Ready.
I can't remember. I think it was Socrates, but it doesn't matter. It was gnoski se, which means know thyself. And it's a philosophical idiom that's been around actually many, many years. But knowing yourself is valuable because, again, you become authentic. You express your authenticity. But another thing happens too. You become reliable. I mean, it's fairly straightforward that if, in fact, you're expressing yourself that you're naturally good at and you feel accountable for, excuse me, that in itself will produce reliability and consistency. The world loves authentic people.
To present yourself as you are, right?
Yeah. Why not? You're not going to, by the way, your own potential is your own potential. It's not somebody else's. So we can get away from all this pretending to be something that we're not. We can be who we are. And it's very attractive. And I want to make one comment, motivationally speaking. When we come to grips with, when we express our inner talents and what we're meant to be and all that stuff, we are very, very powerful people. We're huge. We can take on jobs we didn't even know we could do. Right. And not only that, here's something else. When you've identified this accountability, this sense of self, that is actually when you'll start taking amazing risks. And I don't mean risks of racing across the highway to see if a truck will miss you. I'm talking about risks where you say, I'm going to go and approach that individual with this idea. I'm going to try something that I never would have done otherwise.
The level of confidence that you have, right?
Absolutely.
From being authentic.
Exactly. So being authentic all starts with the gate of looking at your own talents. And we're back into this journaling business. Now, the journaling business takes one little sidestep here. And this is the last part on accountability. Because when you journal, you write down, what did I do today? What did I feel about what I did today? That's the general principle. When it comes to accountability, I'm not sure you can do this every day of the week. I don't think you can. But you can certainly do it once a month. And that's to write down 25 things you like about you. Because if I write down what I like about me, at first blush, when you hear that, you think, oh, crumbs, that's a clarion call for arrogance and conceit and all those ugly things. It's nothing of the sort. It's actually incredibly humbling. that you say
to yourself. Reminder of who you are or who
exactly. Reminding who you are. And therefore, I mean, we got one more, Latin, not Greek, Latin. Cogito ergo sum, which means I think, therefore I am. That was from Descartes. But what a lot of people don't know about that expression, I think, therefore I am, is you hear it quite a lot. And the Latin, as I say, is cogito ergo sum. Actually, what Descartes said was dubito ergo, anyway, what he was saying was, I doubt, and therefore I think. And therefore, what I'm getting at here is we doubt ourselves, don't we? We doubt whether we're good enough and strong enough and all that. And we've all had those awful experiences. Even your parents have said, oh, I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Right.
And you start doubting yourself. Take away the doubt by giving yourself this concept, this reality of expressing your own potential to you, by you, for you. It's the ultimate in democracy. You're treating yourself to who you really are. I reckon that's a pretty powerful message.
It is, and I find there is a philosophy out there. I know that we are I don't know where it comes from, but we're drawn to always going and asking. We're thinking about making a decision on something, whether typically something a little bit more important, and we'll go and we'll ask everybody's opinion. And then it can get very confusing. It can muddy the waters in terms of what you want to do. At the same time, sometimes it can really reinforce it, because if you're hearing something that you feel is not in alignment with what it is you actually want to do, it kind of gives you a little bit of validation. The key is you have to listen to yourself, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like railway tracks. There are two railway tracks. One says ask people, the other one says make up your own mind. And they both go hand in hand. They're brilliant.
Right.
Now, we have to sign off on this particular podcast message, but I'd like to sign off on one very, very powerful, important point, critical point. And that is, would the politicians, the leaders, the bureaucrats, whoever you are, regulators, I don't care, whatever you are, would you please recall and remember you are a human being and you are engaging with another human being. And let the fullness and that expression of the dignity of the human being flow between those two parties. When we do that, then we get productivity, we get contentment, we get innovation, we get loyalty. We, in fact, get what the human being is designed to do one to another. And on that, I rest my case.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Sarah.